So let's talk about cleanup now. The easiest way to clean this kind of ink up is probably just to take it to the sink. And but before you put it in the water, what I would suggest is wiping off as much of the excess ink. Like I've got a big puddle of ink here where I had set my scrap of. That's pretty thick there. So what I would do is use, this is a baby wipe or some scrap of paper, and try to wipe off the thick stuff first. It comes up pretty easily. If you have scraps of t-shirt, old t-shirt material, that also works great for trying to get stuff cleaned up. The roller is going to need a little bit of soapy water, so I have this. This is just like Dr. Bonner soap, but any sort of dish detergent can work on the roller. So you want to spray it pretty well. If you have some newspapers, like old newspapers, you can roll it out on scrap paper. I don't have a newspaper handy. This is just an old photocopy of something that I don't need anymore. And you can roll the brayer across that to help clean it off. So these brayers should be a tan color. They shouldn't be black when you're done with it. You want to make sure you clean the ends of the roller as well as the face of the roller, and do your best to get it nice and clean. Certain cleansers might end up making the rubber feel a little bit sticky once it's cleaned. I'm not sure why that happens. I've asked the guys, some other printmakers that I know, and no one seems to know why the speedball rollers in particular get kind of gummy sometimes after they've been cleaned. But if they seem really sticky, what you can do is take a little bit of cornstarch or baby powder and just sprinkle a little bit in your hand, and then roll the sticky roller across that to create a little bit of a dusty coating on there, and then rub off the excess if it gets sticky. But when you store rollers, you always want to store them on their backs. You never want to have them resting on the rubber, because the rubber is pretty soft, and if it's left for a long time against something flat, you'll end up getting a flat spot on your roller, and then it won't roll very easily. The other thing you want to be careful about is not storing it in a drawer where lots of other things that might be hard, can press into it, So I usually will hang my roller. I drill a hole in the handle and hang it up, or I just have it resting on its back when it's in storage instead of resting on its face. The other thing that'll help your rollers stay in good shape for a longer amount of time is to keep them out of ultraviolet light. I wouldn't leave them in a full sun window or have extreme heat or cold. So just try to protect them a little bit, baby them, and they'll last for many, many years. So we've cleaned the roller. This is a pretty thin layer of ink. If you had a really heavy layer of ink, you might want to scrape off the excess first with a scrap of mat board, just to get that layer as thin as you can first. And then with just a little bit of soapy water, it should come up pretty easily too. So just keep using your baby wipes, or if you've got some scrap t-shirt material, it should come up nice and well. This is my inking board is something I found at Goodwill. This was like a ceramic cutting board of some kind. What I supplied you in your kits is a pretty thick piece of plexiglass. The plexiglass will scratch if you're using a razor blade to try to clean off the ink. So try to be gentle on the plexi. If you use solvents and cloth more than a lot of scratching, then your plexi will stay in good shape a lot longer. You might also, I didn't mention this as we were laying out the ink, but you also might want to put a white piece of paper underneath your glass or your plexiglass inking area so that you can see the colors. With black ink it doesn't matter as much, but if you're mixing a particular color of yellow or green or something, having the white paper underneath it helps you see that color a little bit more easily and judge the transparency of the ink. So we'll talk a little bit more about mixing transparent inks in a later demo, but that's something to think about, is having a white surface to lay out your inks on instead of a clear surface. The other thing you can do is get a roll of white contact paper, and you can carefully adhere the white contact paper to the back side of your plexiglass so that that white is always attached to your inking surface. Now, to clean the plate, that's also a really easy thing to do. Remove any excess ink that you can first, if possible, and then just a little bit of soapy water will take that off. This is a oil-based ink. they call it water soluble, but it's a soy oil, so it really is still an oil. And so having a little bit of soap in your spray water really helps break down that emulsion a little bit better. It's kind of like cleaning out a peanut butter jar. You know, it's not, it doesn't just rinse off real easily with water, so you do need to have a little bit of soap that helps break down that oily layer. So make sure you clean your plates really well, and clean both sides. You can put them right in the sink if you want to. I'm just trying to do this so I can still do it under the video camera, so I'm kind of doing it by hand, but it's a little bit faster to just take it to the sink and clean it that way. The ink will also come off your hand pretty well if you add a little bit of soap to your just bar soap or dish soap or whatever. It will come off your hands pretty well too. And if you get the ink on your clothes, just pre-treat it with a little bit of a laundry soap, and it should come off your clothes fairly well too. But I do recommend wearing an apron. Sometimes the red and the blue is a little bit more of a staining color, so if you have good clothes, you just protect it with some old t-shirt or an apron if you have a apron you can put on. But always clean up everything really well. If you mixed a lot of ink for some reason and you don't want to waste it, you can just fold that ink up in a little piece of either the parchment paper or the freezer paper works really well. Even a piece of plastic wrapped around it. This ink will never dry out. It only dries when it absorbs into paper, so as long as you aren't letting crumbs and like grit and other stuff drop into the ink, you can use it over and over again. So don't throw it away. If you've mixed up too much, try to put it in a little container and use it again another day.